Hey everyone, and welcome back to Commander Clash. This week, we are going to be talking about salty cards. EDH Rec recently did a grand salt score, top 100 saltiest cards in Commander. They do a poll every single year, polling people on EDH Rec, people who view the site, asking them to rate every single card, and then they compile to see which ones are the saltiest, and they give a top 100 every single year. So recently they did the one for 2022, and we're going to be just discussing the cards here and giving our thoughts on them, seeing if there's any common patterns between the cards, what changed between 2022 and 2021, and how we would approach using these cards in Commander. Like, what would we do with this information in a regular game? How do we apply it? And joining me, as always, for this discussion is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How's it going, Seth?
I'm doing great, Tomer. How are you today?
I'm excited to hear people's takes on it, especially one person in particular. I'm thinking Krim, a.k.a. the Asian Avenger, a.k.a. the Troll Master. I really want to hear some of your opinions on some of these cards.
A lot of these lists, or this entire list, is like almost my deck list.
You're just like writing down notes like, oh, I forgot about this card.
This is a good deck. Hold on, if I just add everything here.
You can fit everything in blue. Or not, maybe not, but we'll see. Anyway, moving on, we got Phil, aka Brewer's Kitchen. How's it going, Phil?
All good. Just waiting to rate some salty cards. Although I can't understand why all of them are salty looking at the list. So not
there are
much.
Going to be,
not much to say. Probably there's a lot to say, but man, these cards are salty.
Yeah.
Static Orb. Ooh. Whoa.
Yeah. So just to clarify, you can find all of these. You can find the top 100 EDH Rec Salt cards linked in the video description. Also in the article, if you go to mtggoldfish.com, if you're listening to this on the podcast, if you go to the article on MTG Goldfish, you can find, we're going to be linking the EDH Rec top 100. So you can just find that with a single click. But also, Joey from EDH Recast did a cool video, a short 14-minute presentation basically on the new stats, and a lot of really cool tidbits comparing the 2022 salty cards versus last year's and the years before, and see what the trends are. So a lot of the talking points are actually gleaned from that video as well, that I thought maybe would be interesting to discuss and expand upon as a group. So big shout out to Joey and EDH Recast for doing the video. You can find that also linked in the article section as well, and I highly recommend checking them out. All right, so for our listeners at home, these are the top 10 saltiest cards in Commander as notified by the EDH Rec viewers. Seth, could you go over the top 10 and maybe what categories would you sort them together in?
All right, so almost all of them are some form of mana denial. The top four are actually Stasis, Winter Orb, Static Orb, and Vorinclex, which are all cards that keep you from untapping your lands or untapping permanents. And then there's a bunch of just mass land destruction, sometimes with more destruction thrown in, like Obliterate, Devastation, Yackle Hops, which we've seen Richard play several times on Commander Clash, Armageddon. And then the two weird ones, I would say, are Expropriate, which is a massive extra turn spell, can get you up to 3 turns or steal some things, like Blatant Thievery extra turn hybrid, and Thassa's Oracle, which I guess is just the easiest way to jank out a win without really playing a game of Magic with the help of something like Demonic Consultation. So mostly some sort of mana denial with a couple of oddballs thrown in. And honestly, if you keep going further down the list, I think that top 10 does hit on... There's a few different categories, I would say, of cards if you really jump into this top 100 list. But one of the biggest ones, in probably the single saltiest category of cards for Commander players, is stuff that stops you from using your lands. Either doesn't let you untap your lands, blows up all your lands. There's mass land destruction cards that I honestly had never heard of. Like, if you go down on near the bottom of the top 100, there's a card called Keldon Firebombers, which is like a 5-mana red card from Prophecy that when it ETBs, each player sacks all but 3 lands they control. So basically anything that's going to mess with people's mana is going to show up on this list, very highly on the list. So I would say that would be the number one category. But if you dig into it, I think there's some other like common themes. Are there any other like common themes that you guys see in this list? Like groupings of cards that tend to be salty?
I mean, stacks is pretty much that, right? If you have to pay more, it's basically like tapping down your lands.
Yeah, we like Grand Arbiter's on there. That's one of them. Rhystic Study, I guess you could call a tax card in a weird way. So yeah, things that tax definitely, I would say, are a category.
Yeah, extra turns as well.
Yeah, it seems like the big one for me is like stuff that prevents you from casting your spells.
Yep.
And that's like all the mana denial stuff is lumped there, and that's like the bulk of the stuff here. And then stuff from like just not allowing your creatures to do things. Like I noticed there's the Tabernacle at Pendril Vale, which is, I think it just barely didn't make the top 10. It has a salt score of 2.32. Just as a heads up, the highest saltiest card is 2.92. That's Stasis, and the lowest on the top 100 is 1.56. So like Notion Thief is rounding out number 100 on the top 100, and it's half as salty as Stasis, which is number 1.
Speaking of locking down creatures, I think it's interesting that there's several cards that deal with creatures permanently that are on this list. Like Elish Norn is 1.71. Humility is on here somewhere. Overwhelming Splendor is on here at 1.8. So Commander players don't like things that stop their creatures from working forever. What you don't see on here, though, is just wraths. Like, it's kind of funny that if you want to sweep the board one time, apparently that's not going to make people too salty. But if you play a card that's like, your creatures aren't going to function for the rest of the game as long as this card's on the battlefield, that's when you start to see the salt come out a little bit.
Makes sense, right? At least it's over after the wrath and you can do something again. With Humility, it's like some decks just don't play their deck afterwards if they lose all abilities. Oh my, like Yarok or something will not have fun. Because probably they play, like, if their answers to enchantments are like creatures and these creatures don't have abilities, yeesh.
Yeah.
It's a little awkward.
That's probably the hard part for those type of decks. Like a Yarok deck, what type of enchantment destruction are they running? They're running a creature with an ETB that will blow up the thing, or Chulane, for example, same thing. Yeah, they're going to be running creature things for more value.
So they like shut down the hate painful cards too, sort of. Yeah.
There were the answers to it.
I mean, really, if you delved into this list and you were going to sum it up as one category, it would mostly be, and not every card, there's exceptions that we'll talk about, but I think it's mostly stuff that stops me from executing my game plan. Whether that be, I don't have any lands, my creatures are locked down forever, you're taxing me in a pretty harsh way, so I can't draw extra cards, I can't cast my instants. Like, a huge percentage of the cards on this list, I think, end up falling under that category. Like, it seems like Commander players, they want to have the opportunity to do what their deck is trying to do, and if you blow up their stuff or even counter their stuff for the most part, they can deal with that. But once you stop them from executing their game plan, that's when people start to get really salty.
It's like the difference between a speed bump and putting a wall in front of them, right? Speed bumps, people don't seem to be salty about. If you sword somebody's commander, okay, but I'll recast my commander later, but you slowed me down. Whereas you put humility on the battlefield, it's well, I need to hope to top deck my one or two outs to humility, or I'm just not going to play the game, and I have 99 cards in my deck. So
I feel like a good amount of this is just speed bumps, though. the first 10 I can get down with, but so far I feel like a lot of actually no 3, 6, 9 like about the first 10 I get to 11, but there's a good chunk of this I'm just wait, why is this a problem?
Give me an example, Krim. What do you see as a speed bump that other people see as a super salty card?
Okay, why is Jewel Lotus a super duper salty card? Why is I genuinely don't see why that's that problematic. Why is an oppression or something like that, and I don't think these cards are, they're I'm not saying they suck, Like, please don't take that as these cards are terrible. They are good cards, but I don't see why that's a problem. I don't see why Rift is a problem. I don't see why. I definitely don't know why Droneth Magistrate is on here. Like Droneth Magistrate is a 1/3. It is a 1/3. Like there are a lot of these cards. That just, okay, like I get like maybe Nether Void. I get Nexus of Fate, right? Like I don't get Emrakul, the Promised End. Like, you take my turn, but how many times have we seen that happen? Like, someone plays it and like it's like, cool, I have like a bunch of bad cards, or I can't cast my cards, right? It's like sick. And Force of Will, like, come on. I thought counter spells were speed bumps. Like this is why, because this is free. I guess that's why. But like, I get the extra turns part.
I wonder too if it's a little pay to winny with like Force of Will. Like, if any of it's like, it's a counter spell, but it's like $100 counter spell, and it's really, really good. So you get a pretty big advantage if you're willing to pay $100 to have Force of Will. Or same with Fierce Guardianship, really. Like, there's a pretty big gameplay advantage to being willing to spend that amount of money compared to playing like a counter spell or something. So I wonder if that is a little bit of what make people salty about those cards too. Like, I know people don't like getting countered, but it's especially brutal when you get countered and you're like, oh, I'm too poor to be able to counter you back because I don't have a Force of Will.
The counter spells on this list are the three free counter spells, like Force of Negation, Force of Will, and the free commander. How am I blanking?
Fierce Guardianship.
And then there's Mana Drain.
There's Mana Drain as well.
Pretty good one. Pretty much free if you sum up the mana in 2 turns, then you even get mana out of it. Yeah, no counter spell.
I mean, I can understand that. I feel a little bit of salt on the free counter magic just because I think they're very bad game design. Like, I think part of the balancing act of counter magic is the fact that you need to keep up mana in order to utilize them. And I think that's actually like it's a fun mini game with blue players where you have to respect the fact that they have open mana. So if they do have open mana, that means you have to either try to bait the counter spell or like play around it in some regard. And then when they tap out, that means you have the green light to do your thing. And then free mana counter magic just kind of feels like, oh, well, that sub game's gone. You can just have it whenever, so I'm not even going to play around things anymore because, they can have it, right? Like, it's just going to get countered anyway. So I think it's just a bad design, but I'm not necessarily that salty about it. I wouldn't rate it highly in terms of salt. Like, it's just a one shot.
These things in terms of salt, like, don't make sense. Like, if you... Like, if you choke me, I guess like I don't really view that as a salty experience for me. Maybe because I've gotten choked out so many times in Modern that I'm just like, okay. Like, but like these cards don't bother me. Boil, choke. I mean, like flash fires. Like, what are these on here for? Right? Like, I don't know why.
Some decks get eradicated by this if you're mono white and the rest of the table doesn't care about flash fires. You're sitting there like, I don't know if I spoil anything, but I mean, Seth had quite the similar experience in that.
I know why Krim doesn't find me salty, because he likes doing it to me. I would actually argue, though,
don't you like Island, Seth?
Oh my God, I love Islands, Don't remind me.
I love Islands. Why, like it... Like, and I mean, I could understand maybe like the like humility like salt meter, but like I don't even view humility as that salty.
You don't play creatures, Krim. Of course you don't.
I do play creatures.
Will be fine.
My opposition agent now does nothing, right? Like, so like half the time, I don't know. The only thing I can understand, and also Gaia's Cradle outside of price point, right?
Tomer gets very salty about Gaia's Cradle, so that one makes sense. I don't find Gaia's Cradle salty, but Tomer gets super salty over that one. Like, I think because of Vince. That's a Vince thing.
Isn't it also just like, well, we have Gaia's Cradle is 2.03 salt score.
It's pretty high
up there.
Yeah.
But even higher is like Dockside Extortionist, and I think I lump them in the same category. Because they're both they make way too much mana than what the format should allow. I think it rockets you too far ahead. I think so. I put them in the same category.
I think it's interesting to see a few of those push for commander cards from recent years show up on there. I was thinking that maybe people didn't like Wizards printing cards specifically for commander that were so pushed, but maybe it's just the mana thing, because like Smothering Tie's on there at 2.11. We mentioned Jeweled Lotus is pretty high on the list. You mentioned Dockside is pretty high on the list. So it seems like that's another like pseudo category, is just like the most busted cards Wizards has printed in the last couple of years. People rank them very highly.
What? Why is Elish Norn on
Not
here?
just... Alex Norn locks out certain decks, I guess. The card that I really don't understand, which is also made for Commander, Atraxa. I mean, it is number 98 on the list, but isn't it just the Atraxa decks that... wait, even them?
I
think just the card is boring, but is it...
I think it's the
it doesn't do
Atraxa as your
anything.
commander, right? And like so, like as a face
Probably.
card,
It's just-
because the nonsense that comes with it, like is probably why. But I don't think the card itself is actually that is bad at all.
Yeah, I mean, with
No.
Tulane or Corvold, I get it that the commanders just push way too much. But with Atraxa, it's like, it's boring, sure, but...
I think it might be tied to popularity. Like I think it's out of all the commanders here, I think Atraxa is the most fair, because her floor is very high, but her ceiling is not exceptionally high. You only get so much value out of her every single turn. Whereas something like Tulane, like that ceiling is exponentially high. If you have the mana to keep recasting creatures, you can win. Same thing like Edgar Markov is also incredibly difficult to deal with. Narset, which is much more salty. But Atraxa happens to be the most popular commander according to ED Trek. Like, just out of all commanders, she sits in the past 2 years, she's ranked number 1 with almost 14,000 registered decks as her as a commander. So I think maybe just the sheer number of them. But it's interesting that Lathril is number 2 with 12,000 decks, and I don't see Lathril in the salt score, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the same is for
Lathril,
the elf commander precon commander.
How is this so popular?
People
People
love
love
elf
elves.
decks.
They
People
really
love
like
elves.
elves.
But
Elves
really,
are
though,
popular.
like, I think that's a really good point. Like, how are we picking and choosing which popular commanders make us salty here? Because we have like Eureka, we have Atraxa on the salt score list. We have Edgar, we have Corvold, we have Tulane. That's a lot of like powerful. I guess you could argue some of them are maybe even too powerful, but like powerful and popular commanders. But why is the Ur-Dragon not salty? Or like Kenrith, which is also like one of the top 5 commanders, or Omnath, or Midroltha. Like, what is it that sets those commanders apart? Like, I don't think you can argue that it's just like Tulane is straight up more powerful than the Ur-Dragon or something. They're both really strong commanders. Why does some of them get a pass and not show up on this list, and other ones people just get like super salty about, when presumably you're seeing them roughly the same amount of the time, because based on EDH Rex rankings?
There needs to
Atraxa's an
be
anomaly.
There needs to be like a way where they do this list and all the LD just gets lumped together. Because if you remove, like, if you put all the LD spells into one card, right? Because that's essentially the same thing repeated, right? That's like the first 50 cards. I'm curious what the the actual other like 90, like, you know, the other 50 cards would be if you just didn't have like most of the list be LD.
Yeah, if you could go further down on the list, it would be interesting to see. Another thing I would say, I don't know if any of you tried to take the SALT survey when it was live.
I did.
I tried to take it a little bit. This is the first year I'd actually taken it, and I was kind of surprised that it seems like it was just literally random cards through the history of Magic, because I got a lot of like commons that I never have seen anyone play, and I have no idea why, like, who could possibly be offended by Lone Missionary or just some random grab common. So I almost wish that it, like, I don't know, was filtered in some way by like commander playable cards or something. Because eventually I ranked like 50 cards, and then I was like, oh, I'm tired of clicking no, these aren't salty to all these random commons. So I guess I'm just gonna give up and not do it.
Okay, cool. I thought it was just me because, like, am I supposed to be salty about these cards? Like, is somebody just upset about Seeker of the Way? I hit no on like every card. Like, oh
They
no,
just
prowess.
wanted you to. They wanted
many
every
zeros.
single card to be voted
Yeah.
on. But I feel like there's a lot of cards that maybe after they haven't been voted, maybe if they get like a 0 on the salt scale, like 0% of people find it salty, you just remove it for the next year's survey. You know, like you don't have to have like some random common from Fallen Empires show up again, and that would stop
probably
wasting people's time.
Easier for them, right? Otherwise, they have to curate a huge list of potentially salty cards. Like they can't say, "Oh, these are the cards that I find salty," so I just give them these cards to rate. So it kind of makes sense that the whole community rates every card. It just looks weird from the perspective of just...
Can't you just say, like, for 2023, every single card that was rated less than 0% salt, you just say no?
I mean, sure, but it has
out.
to be rated at some point. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we did
So
that this
if we
year.
don't
is what I
rate it-
We
mean.
already did it.
this year,
Yeah. As in,
I mean-
if we already did it, we don't have to do it again.
And EDH Rec also has just like they already have the data on what cards see play in Commander.
That's
so
yeah.
you could also filter out like if this sees playing like 0% of decks and it's a random common, like maybe it's not worth putting on the list just because it's not really relevant in any way. Even if it was salty, like it wouldn't matter because literally 0 people play it.
They
But-
still have to curate it, but
Yeah.
still, yeah, it's a lot of work.
So
But it seemed a bit off when you took the survey. I just clicked on it and thought, well, I have to rank random cards here, so I'm just gonna get off this survey and keep working on something else. Like it's not like
Yeah. I think that would be
Yeah.
my feedback to EDH Rec if they're listening to it. If you could remove the cards that just like are obviously not relevant
it's
to the
gonna be
survey,
some work though.
that would probably make it more easy to participate.
yeah, going back to the commanders, I have a question for you. What does this data mean in practice? So we know that people consider Urza, Corvald, Edgar, Tulane, Eureka, Atraxa. These are on the top 100 salty cards. Does this mean you should be like tearing apart your Tulane deck and finding another commander? Like, should you be searching for a different Saga commander than Atraxa because it's salty and you shouldn't bring it to a table? Like, what do you do with this data in practice now that we know a lot of people consider these cards salty? Like, should this impact the commanders we play and the decks we bring to Vegas or a Command Fest or your LGS?
Should we? Probably not. Will it? I mean, yeah. Like, I think, like, as in, these cards already have, like, leave such a bad taste in people's mouths. Like, example, if you look at Eureka and Tulane, like, they kind of do one thing, right? Like, they do their one thing, and they're absurdly hard to interact with, along with Eminence. I do believe, though, they're, like, you know, like, example, when Tomer played Energy Atraxa, I thought that was, like, funny, right? Like that's great. Like, I like seeing that. But when it comes to, like, putting this, like, information into practice, it might be better for you not to have these, even if you have, like, a troll, like Energy Atraxa deck. Like, obviously, I don't know if you could find an alternative to that, but, like, I think it's better to have, like, an alternative Mardu vampire commander, or try to go a different route when you want to do vampires. Obviously, Eminence is cracked and absurd and super broken, but, like, if you don't want to die first, like that's the main thing. Like, with all these cards, with all this data, that means that you, I guess, like, if you were to play me with any of these as your commander, I don't care, but know that I will counter everything you play, and I only direct it at you. So I will only go for you because you are the threat, right? Like, unless for some odd reason you can convince me otherwise. So, and I assume that if I think that way, I'm assuming others will think that way as well. Like, we all know there's tons of other ways to build a sacrifice commander. None as good as Corvald, but, like, there are other ways to build sack decks. So, yeah, just take that take that into mind when you play these, is that they are so hated out that you will always probably be targeted first.
Yeah, it's a bit. Oh,
go ahead.
oh, yeah. Oh, okay. It's a bit like the matchmaking on Arena for Historic Brawl. Like, you could play a Blink deck and use, like, some random Azurius commander, but you could also choose Yorion, but you do need to know that you're going to get matched up with people that also play strong decks. In Commander, it's not quite like this, because you just join a table if you just play random games. But instead of being matched up with harder decks, the people are going to go harder on you. I don't know. I don't change my commander according to this, but I often get to hear that my commander is the scary one, and then I get attacked. So just be aware of this. It seems like I'm not too scared of Atraxa, but it seems like people are. I mean, it's the abilities on the Atraxa are the problem. I think this Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink, that makes it just a good thing to have on the battlefield. Yeah. The proliferate part is actually kind of interesting, but the rest just makes it like, oh, so I can't attack you, and you're going to go in life, and But otherwise,
I wouldn't say Trax is bad. Like, I think that she's the most popular for a reason, and I think she's very good. But I just don't think she's as busted as the other ones that showed up on the list. And I think like Crim, like we alluded to, like Phil, like you should know that these cards might be salty. And I think the most use the salt scale can be is probably to help newer players, because I think a lot of new players will show up with a commander that is genuinely just exciting for them. Like they see Chulane, and Chulane says, oh, I get to ramp, I get to draw cards, this seems really fun, so I will play this. And it was also a Brawl commander. Keep in mind, this was being marketed towards newer players to pick up and get into the format. Corvold was also another one of them. So a lot of people genuinely will pick up these commanders not knowing that they're like hated out at your journal table, and that can lead to like some really big feels bad moment where they're like, really, you spend maybe hundreds of dollars on this new deck, you have no idea about its reputation or anything, you just like the card, and you show up and people immediately say like, it's Corvold, I hate Corvold, I'm gonna take you out first. And like, because everybody who's played against Corvold has been steamrolled by Corvold at some point. You know, that's the rite of passage these days. So it sucks for the person who just invested a lot of money into a deck that now they probably don't like because they're being hated out on. So I think knowing how salty, how powerful some cards are is really helpful, because they can give you an informed choice. Okay, you like Corvold, just know that it's very salty. Do you still want to build a deck? If you build a deck and you know that it's salty, now you have the right expectation going into the game. Yes, people are going to hate you out, but like, you know that now, so like you can adapt to that, right? So I don't think it's necessarily don't build these decks. It's like, if you do build them, you need to be you should be informed that these might be salty cards, and that people might focus you more than you expect. And I think that's a good way of, this is a good tool for giving people that information.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about new players as well, because I think if you're someone who plays a lot of Commander, most of this list is pretty intuitive. It's mostly the cards that you probably know, like, people get kind of upset when I blow up all their lands or whatever. So I think it's like kind of intuitive if you play a lot of Commander, but if you're someone just getting into the format, you might not realize it. Because I remember when I got into the format, and I used to think it was hilarious to like Obliterate or Apocalypse, and I was like, oh, this is great, like, why wouldn't I do this? This is so sweet. And then eventually I learned that like the unwritten rules are you're not supposed to do that in Commander, and now I know, and now I don't play those cards very much. So I think there is a lot of value for new players who might not be as experienced in the format and might not realize that the perception of some of these cards is pretty negative overall in the community.
My new player commander friend went from Edgar Markov to Atraxa, and then he wanted to try something different. He went Edgar Markov Vampires, then he went to Atraxa Super Friends, and then he's like, I want to try something different, Brago Blink. And like, I never had a chance to tell him like, oh, just watch out, they're a little bit salty of commanders. But yeah. So for people like for newer players, it's really important to have some easy to digest guide on what might be scary.
Yeah, it's got to be an incredible feel bad if you like build your first own commander deck and don't take these informations into account, and then you show up to the table and you're like proud to show off the deck you built, and everybody says like, oh yeah, I hate this. That's gotta be such a feel bad. Like,
I hate it.
Yeah, maybe you think, oh, did you ever think about this card, Decree of Annihilation? And they say, yeah, no. Like, it's gotta be, I hope some people found this list before they joined their first game with a deck like this, because Yeah, as Seth mentioned, when you start playing Commander, you're probably thinking, well, why wouldn't I blink my Dockside Extortionist? That seems very good, and it is. But
That's very good.
I got another question for you, kind of switching topics a little bit. One card near the bottom of the list is Triumph of the Hordes. Triumph of the Hordes, 1.59 on the Salt scale. It's 4 mana, everything gets trample and infect and gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So it's an overrun effect. Very curious. Why do you think this is on the list when I don't think that Triumph of the Hordes is like generally meaningfully more powerful than like Overwhelming Stampede or something, which gives everything +X works as the biggest creature you have, the power of the biggest creature in Trample. Like, is this a power level thing, or is this more of a psychological thing where players just like the word infects makes them salty? Like, we had that game where you played the Plague Mirror and I kind of like immediately freaked out, even though you were just using it as a mana dork just because it says infect on it. Like, is that just a normal commander reaction that if it says infect, it's going to be salty?
I'm taking out Plague Mirror from my deck. I remember
The aggro,
We
the
did it.
aggro was on Tomer.
You could
No, like-
I mean, I deservedly got aggro afterwards, but the Plague Mirror was just a mana dork. It was a mannequin.
But infect.
That's exactly
God.
it, though, right there, Seth. You just said it. Infect. It doesn't matter what it said before. The fact that it is an overrun is what you should look at it as. But like, it just has infect. It doesn't matter otherwise. I don't know.
Fair.
I don't think it's that bad.
But infect is pretty much quadruple strike in Commander, right? Like, judging by you kill somebody at full life, it's 40 damage or 10 infect damage. So you quadruple their power.
Almost
and they
every
have trample.
every overrun will kill somebody, though.
That's why I thought about it. Like, if you play what's her name? I'm blanking on so many card names today. The Chroma's Will.
Oh, yeah.
That game gives double strike, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
like
protection
protection
and
and
everything.
That one's
and
everything.
nutty. That one's actually
I'd say-
better than Triumph.
Yeah,
That's
I think that
gotta
was
be
so
a
much
way
better
better card, like way more flexible and
it
I
Chroma's
guess
Will on this?
more potential to kill.
It's not.
I don't know. Triumph just kills every time. That's so.
It's interesting, though, because
I
it's not
wouldn't-
the best version, right? Like, Triumph, like you said, a Chroma's Will is probably better. And you can even argue
That's
about
why-
some of the other overruns.
It
like,
protects your creatures and it's instant speed. Like sorcery on Triumph is brutal.
But dead is dead. Either way, Overwhelming
Yeah.
Splendor, Triumph of the Hordes, Crater Hoof, like, that is dead.
I think Triumph is still one of the best overrun effects. Like,
Yeah,
I
for
still
sure.
like if you're saying, well, it's just Overwhelming Stampede and stuff, but like, I don't run Overwhelming Stampede. I run Triumph from the Hordes, though.
Yeah, but that's because
it's
you're
really
trying to
good.
make people. That's because you're trying to make people salty with your infect
No,
kills.
I think it's genuinely a better card.
You're a dirty Plague Mirror player, Tomer. We know you love your infect. We know you love it. That's okay.
Also,
I mean-
also of note, Crater Hoof Behemoth, which I think a lot of us would say is the best overrun effect,
Yeah.
actually is saltier. It's so Triumph of the Horde has a 1.59. It's near the bottom. Near the mid is Crater Hoof Behemoth 1.7. And yeah, it's just I think a lot of people would say Crater Hoof is probably overall the best overrun effect.
Yeah.
Especially because it's a creature.
Yep.
And it does it show up? It's like it's more popular than Triumph as well, for sure.
There's I think I actually looked at that. Crater Hoof 7%, Triumph 6%, Overwhelming Stampede also 6%. So they're slightly more popular, but they're in the same range. But I do agree that it's like it's more powerful. It is the best one. So
Yeah.
you think it's just a power level thing? Like the two best overruns are salty, or do you think it's like? Do you think Infect is part of why we see Triumph on there?
I think
Infect.
people hate
It's
Infect. Yeah.
I despise Infect, but like
What?
yeah, like I
You
I just,
Skittles me to death like multiple times.
that was because it was the
Dragon
the
Tribal.
the New Year's Eve or New Year's resolution thing. Play something that you wouldn't normally. I don't play Infect normally. Like
Do you not have Skitherix in one of your paper decks?
I have it in my my dragon deck, but
I
it's
don't
not,
play.
It's not
play decks.
it's not a commander, right? Like I actually and plus I play with cards I despise all the time. But like I myself just like dislike Infect, but whatever. I've even been open about it with Seth in like our other podcast. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd mind if they brought it back into Magic. Like, to be honest,
You
like
monster.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest here. I don't even care if they brought it back into Magic. So
I would be very disappointed. I don't think they will, because people genuinely hate it, even in 1v1. But I would like to see it come back, and then we just raise the poison counter from 10 to 20.
Yeah.
as
I
it
mean,
should
they
be.
got a fixed version, right? New cards do sometimes add poison counters, but it's like one at a time. Like
Yeah, but that's not as
Finn
fun.
or the new
That's like
Ajani.
Mine
the original.
facts.
The original version is actually the fixed version somehow. I mean, I think
Oh,
the
yeah,
fact
right.
that Blightsteel is 1.96 and like pretty high on the list, but no one really plays it, probably backs up the fact that people just like really don't like dying to infect, because it only shows up in like 2% of decks. I don't think I've ever actually died to a Blightsteel in Commander.
What? Satoru?
Did you kill me
Satoru
with a
Mizawa?
Blightsteel?
Ninjutsu in Blightsteel? I died to that
didn't.
from Richard played Satoru and killed me with
Okay.
that.
Okay, so I guess
Did
it
he
does.
pull it off? I think Richard just never got to do it, right?
No, I remember we like drew our entire deck. Oh wait, I think maybe he just killed us with Ulamog or something like that.
Oh,
But Blightsteel's
yeah.
literally a one shot, right? Like if you get get hit by a Blightsteel, you're dead. It's just a one hit, you're gone. So I don't know. I feel like people don't like infect, but also these are by far the most powerful versions. Like you don't see Skithiryx. Skithiryx only does 4,
That's true.
and
Yeah,
he's
I
not on
think-
the list.
we
These
should
are
take into
one-shotters.
account, like when we say, "Oh, this is the most powerful version." People usually hate the goats, like Cristiano Ronaldo for soccer players. I don't watch or follow soccer, but I hear people hating on him. But you can't deny that he's insanely good. But as soon as you're the best, like Kratos of Behemoth, for example, you're bound to get some hate. And I think we
Yeah.
should see this list probably with Atraxa as well. Like if you're insanely popular and good, you automatically have haters, I guess. And
It'll happen.
while in fact it's definitely a thing here, there are some cards here that are just the best at what they do. So this is also a thing to consider here.
That does.
Thassa's Oracle
Okay,
is
okay.
It is definitely
Yeah,
me out.
Thassa's
salty,
Oracle
it's
showing
just the
out, I
best,
think, is the highlight of your argument.
Yeah.
I think like Thassa's Oracle does not deny anybody anything. It's not like any resource denial whatsoever. And yet Thassa's Oracle shows up in the top 10. Is this just because it's the strongest win condition in the format?
surely. Like I don't.
Because there's no Lab Maniac on the battle on
Yeah.
the list.
I feel like it's just like the least satisfying. It's popular and it's like the least satisfying win. Like it feels like you win without actually doing anything. It's just such a jank out the entire table way to win the game. Where it's like, I did my thing and like nothing I did before matters. Like I feel like that's part of what makes it so salty. Because like, come on, man, like play Magic. Don't just do that.
Does anybody play Thassa's Oracle outside of CEDH even? And in CEDH, Salt shouldn't be a thing, right?
I mean,
Who plays-
some of these do not see any play whatsoever. Like Devastation is 1,000 submitted decks. For comparison's sake, like Winter Orb, which is another card I rarely see, has 19,000 deck submissions in it. So
Yeah, it's
like
gotta be.
some of these cards are like they don't show up. So I don't know, but this one actually does 80,000 decks, which is actually a lot. That's actually a lot. That's
I mean,
that's
it's
huge.
every CEDH deck, right? It's got to amount to something.
It's got to
know
be
it's-
CDH. It's got to be
Yeah.
but like outside of CDH, I do play Thassa's Oracle in my Merfolk deck as a just
Sure.
It is just a Merfolk, and I scry with it. I think I played it one time, and the whole table was like, "Oh, do you have a way to combo with?" I'm like, "No, my combo is I'm gonna play Lord of Atlantis and hit you with it. Like I will, like that's my combo."
I feel like that's got to be so wrong because I will probably attack you on principle because you played a 1/3 that's not even very good. But
I mean, it's scries, all right.
okay,
Think of it like as a sort of an augur of bullets.
There's one card that I'm actually surprised is so salty. Like I get it, but like also I was surprised that it's up here. Cyclonic Rift. Salt scored of 2.32, so it didn't make the top 10, but it's like top 13. And it's 280,000 decks.
Oh, it should be higher. That shot definitely
Do you
should
think
be
it's
top 10.
do you think it's the
That's
popularity of it?
Why?
Like,
Oh,
it is
the
very effective. It's possibly the best board wipe that's like outside of like MLD, right? But like,
It's
man,
so bad.
It's pretty
so boring.
salt-inducing. Like,
Yeah.
it makes me a little bit salty. Just like it being instant speed, only impacting your opponents, like everything
starting
about
down
it
to
is-
hand size.
Yeah, just starting to hand size, getting rid of all your cool things while your opponent untaps and like goes off and probably wins. I don't know. It makes me
Hopefully
salty,
wins.
so I can see it. And it's another card you see a lot. Like you were just saying, some of these cards are super salty, but they're so salty that you don't actually see them very much because people have kind of just like self-selected them out of most Commander games. Cyclonic Rift is one of those cards that you see all the time, which I think makes it a little bit worse because you actually experience the salt of it, unlike some of these other cards.
Yeah, like I have it in Zetru and my Mech Titan deck. I'm now wondering, maybe I should take them out? Like,
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah. It's just like, it's the best blue
Zetru
board
would
wipe.
make
If you're a blue, you
sense,
run it,
though.
right?
Right, yeah,
I mean-
you just run it in blue, right? But why would you
like-
take that out? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Like,
I
don't
feel
even
like a hypocrite because I don't run Ristic Study and I hate Ristic Study. And Ristic Study is 25,000, which is also like crazy high. 250,000 decks. It's 251,000 decks. So it's like less popular than Cyclonic Rift, but while Cyclonic Rift doesn't really bother me that much, Ristic Study definitely does. Like, it's of all the cards here, the only one that actually gets me salty is Ristic Study. So now I feel a little bit of a hypocrite that I'm running Cyclonic Rift, but not Ristic Study.
The thing about Cyclonic Rift, it feels too easy to, like, of course, a lot of cards are too easy to win with. Like, that's probably the problem with
but it doesn't win.
Creator of Behemoth. Yeah, that's the problem. If you don't
It
win, like,
keeps the
come
game
on.
going.
Wait, but
The
you
problem- whenever-
want to play Magic. Why wouldn't you want the game to keep going?
So maybe it's I think I've played it 0 times so far, and I will never play it in the future, so I probably keep that 0. The problem is every time a Cyclonic Rift gets cast, everybody says, okay, cool. Have your fun now. It's not like anybody says, oh, that was clutch. Wow, what a cool answer to this problem. No. You just bounce everything, end of turn. No, not everything, of course. It's like, the only thing I get, if Thomas said I played in Zedru, at least there's some synergy with the commander if you give them your opponents and then you pick them up. So I would say, oh yeah, at least it makes sense. But man, Cyclonic Rift is so boring. It's like too easy. Why is it instant speed and only 7 mana?
I mean,
I don't know. I feel like that just aligns with play styles, right? I don't even think this card is like bad at all. Like I've been rifted, Seth rifted me like recently. And,
Yeah, but
like,
you
it happens all the time.
rely on permanence. You
I
play
do. I
spells.
still do. Oh, I don't understand where this. Y'all know that planeswalkers and things are still permanent. I still
You'd be like,
play
sweet,
permanents.
you reset my loyalty counters. Thank you.
Like, there's no
At
way.
least we could have
that-
another.
It's just I think this is a very powerful catch-up card. It doesn't like if you're behind, it allows you to catch up. I don't see the problem with
From
it.
one turn.
but if
But if
you're
you're ahead, it also allows
you
you
win
to
the
get thrown.
game. Yeah, like if you're
Then-
ahead, you win the game.
Then it is a win con. I don't see it. Then why? What is the problem with
but
it?
it
though?
doesn't win.
Okay, so
But it could
Let's-
win, right? Like you
let's-
just mentioned, it could win the game, right? So
let's add the card next to it on the salt scale into this conversation, because I'm curious if you play that one, which is Dockside Extortionist, which is exactly the same salt score, also a staple, and it's a card that I got a copy of because I bought the Cycle of Precons when they were on sale, so I just incidentally have a Dockside. I did put it into one of my decks, and then I took it back out of the deck because it just didn't feel... I never came away from the games where it showed up feeling like it was satisfying or that the table had a good time with that card. And to me, that same feeling kind of exists for Cyclonic Rift. That same thing, like, oh, sure, I won, like I am, but I don't come away from it feeling good about it. So should we consider those cards, even though they work very differently, should we consider them in the same way? Or, I don't know, do you play one and not the other? What do you guys think about the comparison there?
Dockside is the only card I wouldn't play on this, like pretty much. Outside of the LD and stuff, like Dockside, I think is not the same to me as Cyclonic Rift at all. We're talking about like a solid catch-up card. This is absurdly broken. This is absurdly broken. I have to spend 7 mana to Cyclonic Rift, right? You spent 2 mana, and that's not even accounting for the numerous other things that'll happen. Like, oh god, this card is so far ahead of everything on this list, I think, outside of like LD. And Stasis, Winter Orb, sure, leave that at the top, but like for me, this card is just leagues ahead of everything else on this list.
But at some point, like, from the community overall, they view it the same based on these rankings. Like, maybe that's your personal preferences, but apparently thousands of people have graded these cards, and overall, the Commander community views them as exactly the same.
Yeah. So
I've never been salty about Rift, but Dockside, like I had in my culture deck, I took it out because I'm just like, it's too good. And I think all these cards are fine, by the way, in terms of like certain play groups. I wanted to just like clarify that. Like all these cards are totally fine if you're playing high powered commander, or even if you're playing low powered commander, as long as your table is on board with it, right?
Yep.
We're talking about like generalized like mid power level tables, casual commander, especially when we are playing against strangers like in a pickup game. Like this is where the salt scale is actually applicable. If you're playing high power, if you're playing CDH, obviously, like this does not apply whatsoever. We're talking specifically about like casual commander with our own groups or just, with pickup games.
I mean, in person, I would probably just laugh if somebody slams down a tabernacle or something. I think that's something completely different. Like if I play in my play group and somebody just sneakily whips out a CEDH deck, I should just say, yeah, you know what you did. So that's fine. Like the pickup games are where the assault scale comes into relevance. But I think Dockside, Extortionist, and Cyclonic Rift being rated the same is just because they're all in the same rating system, because Dockside is just too powerful. Like it doesn't stop your opponent from doing anything except for playing, I guess, because you probably win the game pretty soon after. And
stops
Cyclonic Rift
continuing the game magic.
Cyclonic Rift just negates everything your opponents did and doesn't really help you, I guess. And Dockside is power level, the other one is annoyance salt, and I think that's just two very different things. Just like the card next to it is Urza, doesn't really do anything that stops the opponent from doing something, but it's just...
Winter Orb, Static Orb.
Oh yeah, I forgot the Winter Orb. If you combine it with Winter Orb, obviously.
Sure, Actually, it doesn't work with Stasis. Static Orb, Winter Orb, though.
Yeah, if you account for this, but otherwise it just goes infinite and your opponents have to watch you
I guess
solitaire. Who would do such a
bunch
thing?
of
What
ways.
monster? What is a casual deck? What?
I mean, I'd play it with if I had one, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not taking that out of my mech titan. I don't care about the Salt Spear. I'm keeping it in there.
Hey, if I'm creating clues,
yeah.
I'm full hypocrite mode. I will not run Extortionist or Ristic Study, but I'm absolutely jamming Urza.
I find
no
that
one can tell me
hilarious.
otherwise. I know. There's no. This is kind of like a shocker / wake up call for me, because like I always found Rift as like it's very powerful but fair. It's 7 mana. And then Dockside is like, this is like absurd. And then Urza's like, yeah, it's busted with Winter Orb and stuff, and it's a very good card in general, but like, I don't know, I'm still running in my 99.
Do you think Urza's even salty in the 99? I've never been salty about a 99 Urza. Playing against Urza,
you just came
I'm
across
always
an
thinking,
Urza.
like Winter Orb, oh my god, Winter Orb, but...
How did you feel about me dropping down Urza that game?
It didn't bother me.
Be honest.
I was the zero salt score for that play out of the 99.
Yep.
Yeah, zero
Same.
salt score for me. I mean, I obviously Urza is absurd and broken, like very powerful. But like, all right, well, like, but like not even. But then there's like Dockside is just leagues ahead of all of this. So like but the next thing down from a Dockside would probably be like 50 steps below.
That's true. It is pretty far off the curve. I got another question for you. This one, switching topics again. One of the things they mentioned in that video that you were talking about, Tomer, was the biggest gainers in Salt this year were treasure cards. Old Gnawbones shot up like almost a whole point. Prosper went from almost not salty to 0.88. Zorn, Goldspan Dragon. Basically, a lot of cards that have the treasure mechanic shot up. Do you think these cards are actually salty? Or is this an overreaction to the conversation that's been going on in the community about, is Wizards printing too much treasures? Is this mechanic even healthy? Like, have they went too far? Do you think it's a little bit of recency bias where people are voting based on, like, that conversation in the past year? Or are these cards actually salty? Like, to me, Old Gnawbones, to me, that doesn't seem like a salty card. It's 7 mana. You gotta have other creatures to attack with. Like, but it shot up a ton. That's one of the biggest gainers. So what do you think about treasures in this big increase?
I think it is a bit of recency bias. Because everything in the last couple of years, it doesn't matter if you blink, it makes a treasure, right? Like, it does, whatever you do, it makes a treasure. So there's just, everything comes with a lotus petal, and I think that is kind of why people are just upset about it. But do I actually think these cards are that busted? I don't think Old Gnawbone's that busted. I don't think Zorn. Goldspan is very good, but I don't think like a Goldspan in the game of just,
Zorn has a salt score.
Yes.
Anything associated with treasures essentially went up.
Wow. Yeah, that's gotta be.
Should say none of these are in the top 100, though. They all increase, but they still fall outside of the top 100, yeah.
The highest one was Old Gnawbone at 1.41 currently, which is just... Yeah, the top 100 cuts off at 1.56. Prosper is the highest treasure commander at 0.88, so it's still not cracking the top 100.
But a big jump from 0.19 the year before or something. So,
I think people are just fatigued with treasure this year, and I think the salt of these cards are going to go down in a year from now. Because Wizards of the Coast also, I believe, acknowledged recently that they went a bit too far with treasures. So I think just the fact that they went like super ham in the last year with treasure mechanics is people just are fatigued with it, they're tired of it, and it's showing up a lot in Commander because these are recent cards. So people are playing Old Gnawbone not just because it's a really good card, but because it's recent and people want to try it out. Prosper is the most popular commander in Rakdos. So odds are, if somebody busts out a Rakdos deck, Prosper is what you're going to be playing against. So I think that will also color people's opinions on that, because if you're just playing against treasure decks all the time, you'll probably be a little bit more tired of treasure decks. And just for comparison, in terms of Rakdos commanders, number 2 is Anye Falconwrath at 3,716 decks. Can anybody guess how many Prosper decks there are in EDH Rec?
Double that? Like, it's got to be a huge number.
I saw the number, so I
more than triple.
Yeah,
10,000 Prosper decks. The difference between 1 and 2 is more than triple.
To be fair,
Prosper is super fun to
works
play.
pretty well. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, because Prosper is the
pretty good
strongest, is one of the strongest commanders they printed. I think it's like it was actually Gavin and Melissa both said there was a design mistake. So
it is,
yeah, I think it's a little bit overly pushed, but also people like things that are very powerful, like inherently. So there's a correlation there. So yes, it's very. But I think people would be tired to be like Prosper, like, oh, I cast this from exile and make a treasure. Oh, I use the treasure to do that. I make another treasure, make another treasure, make another treasure, and you're just like, please stop. I want my turn.
I wonder if the card can get salty just because you see it so much. You were talking about just how many Prosper decks there are. I've noticed that happen in other formats. We're pretty diverse with how we play Commander because we're playing different decks every week, so we're always seeing different things. But I know sometimes in Standard, there's cards that aren't even that good, but they just show up all the time that I end up getting a little bit annoyed with, not because they're too good, just because you see them too much. So I wonder if that's part of what goes on with like the big increase from Prosper, or even some of those other commanders we talked about earlier, like the Corvalds and Edgars and Atraxas. Like, maybe it's not like, oh, that card's miserable. Maybe it's just like, oh my god, I'm kind of tired of this because I see it all the time. Like, play something else
like
for once.
A song, as soon as it's on the radio, like as soon as you hear it a lot, or even worse, if you thought you were the only one finding this band, and then, oh wow, now they're popular. Nah, I don't like it.
You
like,
throw away your T-shirt.
Hate
You're
them,
like, not hipster enough.
Ooh, I got one more question about this. We talked about treasures going up. Tomer, a group of cards went way down in the past year
Yeah.
that I think is very interesting. What were those cards?
There was a big controversy about a year ago when Wizards of the Coast announced Universes Beyond, which are going to be taking IPs and collaborating and putting them on Magic the Gathering cards. And the first one they went with, out of all the IPs they could go with, they went for a TV show that does not have a lot of cross potential with Magic the Gathering players and probably would have been more received back in its prime a decade ago. But that was the Walking Dead cards. It was a Secret Lair, Walking Dead, mechanically unique cards that showed all your favorite Walking Dead characters as mechanically unique Magic the Gathering cards for a limited time duration sale. And people did not like them. They did not like it very much. And the SALT score of last year showcased that. There was people were very upset about them and considered them all very salty cards. And I think that was more an indicator of the fact that people don't like the product rather than they don't like the card mechanics themselves. And they all went down like significantly in SALT, that they're not even cracking the 100 anymore. They all went down by at least 0.6%, or 0.6 points. And I think it seems like the community is just kind of over it. Like they don't really care about Walking Dead cards or Universes Beyond cards as like a SALT factor anymore. Or at least the ones who did, they've quit the game and they no longer participate in these surveys. So it's one or the other. Probably a little bit of A and B.
It's a frowny face.
Frowny face.
Yeah, that frowny face has been done.
Yeah. So what do y'all think about these cards and the SALT change?
They were never like a salty thing for me. I think the concern was how they were released. They were the first, right? I think that was the issue. They were the first, I think, of their kind with like, the Universes Beyond style stuff. So naturally they draw the most hate. It was just unfortunate for them. Whatever the franchise was, like unless it was like maybe like D&D or something like that. But like that's like splitting hairs.
That would have
right?
made sense.
That would make sense, but like the first drastic like Secret Lair or whatever Universes Beyond style product was Walking Dead, so it was like bound to fail, like or
They
at
should
least
have did
bound
like
to
Lord
get
of the
salt.
Rings or something. Why did they go
Was
Walking Dead?
even still running at this point? I thought this was
Technically,
like,
but
walking,
it was
but
like a
okay.
decade ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a zombie of what it used to be. Let's just say.
It's ending
Wow.
though, but it's got like a spin-off.
Thank
but
God.
I mean, I watched the show enough, but like, I mean, yeah, like for the most part, this as a Magic product, definitely upset a lot of people, but I think it was just because it was the first of its kind. So
I think people have warmed up to it, and people who are like really upset about it, they left. And also, they also walked back that thing where they said like these are going to be mechanically unique. Deal with it. Now they said we're going to reprint these as in-universe options, and we're going to keep that for all Secret Lair versions of Universes Beyond 2. However, it has been 2 years, and we don't know when these cards are.
we're
Yeah,
not going
those-
to get any of them.
We haven't seen those yet. They did say they would, but
They
Yeah,
would.
no, that's the
Sometime.
classic. Yeah.
was it
I mean,
for the
imagine
Walking Dead cards, or is it for future products?
They
No,
said
for
they
Walking Dead.
So initially they said for future products, then they came out and said, "Oh, good news, we're going to do it for the Walking Dead ones too," but we haven't actually.
We
seen
got the
those
ones for
cards.
Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't get Walking Dead.
I mean,
I also-
that's classic Wizards, right? They
Yeah.
just say something and then make one announcement, or like with the arena economy, hey, you can buy wild cards overpriced, and now even the overpriced bundle is gone, and now we are back to where we were. But hey, they did a stream, they addressed it, they should do it.
Also,
Yeah, and
there's-
then I guess it worked for these cards. Like people are not salty about them anymore.
I think it
but the
also
problem's
just gets.
still the same.
I think it also just gets tiring. There's so many things for people to be salty about, and so many products, and so many secret layers, that it's just really tiring to care about all that stuff. So there's so much
Yeah.
going on now that I wonder if some people just like went from being actively salty about it to just being like whatever, like kind of apathetic.
It's me.
at this point.
I'm that
yeah.
person. Like, we have Transformers cards coming out with the Brothers War draft, or not draft boosters, the collectors and set boosters. I'm not a fan of that. There's like Post Malone Secret Lair that just got announced. Like,
Those are all so
Yeah,
cool.
okay, I mean, you're the target demographic for me. I'm like I don't like Universes Beyond, so I'm mildly salty at the idea that they did this. But like, am I going to be upset that you bring out Glenn, the voice of Calm, like at a table? No, I don't care. I'm too tired to care.
Yeah.
That's where it comes down to. I'm just too tired. Play what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
If you want to kill me, like quip Rainbow Dash to, I don't know, the Dreadnought from Warhammer 40k, and then you dab me with the Triumph of the Horde Fortnite skin.
I'm just
Go
saying.
for it.
Now that
I'm
Fortnite's
tired.
in the game, you can definitely floss. You have every.
You can floss.
You can floss after you dunk somebody. I think Magic.
And I
is
want
now-
that Triumph from the Hordes. I want I unironically want the Triumph from the Hordes
yeah.
Fortnite skin, just so I can if I really want to salt somebody out, I
yeah.
get them
That,
really hard.
that has to be
Oh,
the
yeah.
saltiest
The
card in
double dip.
existence. Yeah, I
Yeah, it's
mean,
already on
in
the assault
fact,
scale,
it's
yeah.
already on the salt scale, and it's a Fortnite Universes Beyond. That's it's got to be super high.
I would.
Can you
die from
can you imagine
laughter.
like in a year from now we should have enough cards for like a Universes Beyond just deck,
yeah.
commander deck, and you could just literally just kill people with Fortnite cards.
You know what I want to do based on this podcast is just build like a salt scale deck where I just put like the top 50 cards and then mana rocks and ramp and just like
Yeah.
I
So
might
you just
bring
pick
that
up
to
one of
Vegas.
Crim's decks.
I might bring that. Yeah, that is kind of a Crim deck, isn't it?
I actually do have a Kenrith 5-color hate deck that is just like, but it kills itself
yeah.
at the time. I blood moon myself out of the game, but it's like all the hate cards, and I choke myself.
All right, I wrapping this back around to like the real world. We talked a little bit about if you should change your commanders based on this salt score. Should we be bringing these up in the Rule Zero conversation? Like, let's say we go to Vegas, we're playing with random people. Are we under an obligation as commander players to be like, hey, guess what? I got a Fierce Guardianship in my deck. Hey, you know what? I got a Cyclonic Rift in my deck. Or, you know, there's a Draneth Magistrate or an Ulamog or whatever. Should we be doing that? Is that something we should be addressing to make sure that everyone is, you know, having the same expectations and having a good time?
I wouldn't look to this list for every card because, again, salt can get very subjective. There's only one thing that you see reoccurring through this, right? And it is mana, like
cards.
land destruction, and like orbs, right? The stasis kind of effects. Those are the ones that I think you should probably mention because they are redundant throughout this list. Everything else, I think, is a bunch of misers. I think counterspells are just whatever. I guess it is redundant. There are 3, or 4, but people just don't like counterspells anyways. So I don't know. I think the only things you need to bring up are land destruction, like, hey, I've got Armageddons in this, and hey, I've got stasis effects. That's it. Don't care about anything else.
What about extra turns? I feel like most of the extra turn spells that see play are on the list. Like there are several of those. Does that get it up near the like MLD area or no?
It's on its way, and I can see why. Like it's close, but I wouldn't be like exactly like upset with you if you're like, oh, by the way, I'm taking all the turns. And I hate extra turns. I despise it. I would not play them. I don't even play extra turns. So, like this isn't a thing where, oh, he's a crim bias. No. Like there's just, I just don't think it matters enough. Like just LD and like orbs.
Like, well, it's interesting because I value your opinions more than me because, when I do like a Rule Zero, I just basically kind of lump all these salty cards as like not cool. Like people might not be happy about it if I brought it at like a low power table. But if we're playing like high power, I assume like these cards are all free game as well as like combos and stuff. So like I usually ask like, hey, what power range are we looking? Low, mid, or high? And then from there, like if we're picking low, I will not run these cards.
I just don't have a low power deck, so it's either medium or high.
Wait, you mean? But you have a Morphon Dragon deck.
So that's right. So high power.
It's tricky because some of these cards are staples. Like, do you really need to say I got Smothering Tithe every single game? Like, I just expect that people probably have Smothering Tithe because it's like one of the most played cards. On the other hand, I know when I was in Richmond and I was just playing random games with people, I had a deck that had Fierce Guardianship in it, and a few times I did mention it while we were like talking about what we're playing. Like, yeah, the deck's like not very strong, but like, you know, just so you know, it's got a Fierce Guardianship in there. I don't think it would be wrong for me not to do that in every case, but sometimes it felt right to do that depending on the people I was playing with and what I thought they were playing and their expectations for the game. So I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule where you like everything in the top 100 you got to bring up every time, but I think it's something to be aware of, like that many people apparently consider these cards to be salty, so just something to be conscious of as you're having those conversations maybe.
I kind of wouldn't want to know anything about the opponents. Like, that kind of is the appeal of Commander. You see the Commander, and if the Commander is Narset, well, they're probably going to play some extra turn spells. And they probably won't play a Winter Orb just for fun, so they are a stack, and yeah, they can tell you, I'm a Stax Kenrith deck or whatever. But otherwise, I wouldn't want to know if they have free counter magic. That kind of takes the whole point out of it. If they say, oh, beware, I run Force of Will and Fierce Guardianship, and then I'm sitting there, oh yeah, I really... Like, then they counter me without even countering me, because now I play around them, even if they don't have it. Like, especially with these free spells, I really don't want to know it. Like, ugh.
I don't want to know the contents of your deck, but I do want to know what deck you're running. Like, if you want to run Narset, then I'm not going to bring, like, my 6-drop tribal deck, you know? Because there's not going to be a really game. So, like, if you want to run Narset, I'll bring a more powerful deck that I feel can be a worthy opponent at the table. Same thing with, like, Urza. But, yeah, I don't really care if you're, like, you know, if you're running, like, Obliterate and stuff. I feel like I trust you to know not to bring that to, like, a low-power table and just surprise me with stuff you want to showcase. I don't know. But tell me your commander. Like, if you're Kovold, I'm not going to bring, like, garbage. I'm not going to bring Zedru out to do that. I'll bring something, like, a little bit more powerful.
I mean, because everyone wants to have a good game. So having, like, a little basic information, I think, helps achieve that goal. Because it's not very fun just to, like, stomp. Like, I don't know, play a really bad deck against a really good deck. Like, no, the person with the good deck doesn't feel good, and the person with the bad deck doesn't feel good. But, yeah, I don't know if you got to go card by card. Like, that would be, like, a little bit extreme.
I think if you know somebody gets easily upset by certain cards, then, like, I would just avoid running those decks, like, as a courtesy to them. But, like, generally speaking, I wouldn't be like, oh, I have Temporal Mastery in this deck, you know, like, it's on the salt scale. Like, I don't know. Whatever.
What about?
I mean, Temporal Mastery is like extra turns. You can't feel good about playing extra turns in Commander in general.
Like, I play them in 60
cards
itself
every time. And you gotta sit there and untap, and people watch you. You're just, oh yeah, I'm definitely the bad guy at this
That's what
table
I like.
right now.
No, I don't. I don't usually run extra turns. I do run Cyclonic Rift. Now I feel like, should I take it? Comment section. Should I take out Cyclonic Rift from my?
Don't listen to that. What are you talking about? Most people.
Well, I'm not asking them about Urza. Urza stays. I don't even care.
Yeah. But Cyclonic Rift. No,
I never thought it was that salty. It's 7 mana.
Cyclonic Rift is just salt-inducing, much like Seth had mentioned earlier. It's one of those cards. Everyone has one. It's just like, if you have blue, you play it. Simple as that.
You can say the same thing about Rhystic Study, and I don't like
That's
Rhystic
true.
Study.
I mean, for the most part, I think that Rhystic Study does go in about almost like 80% of blue decks, 90% of blue decks, but not all of them. But I think
I guess when you put it in.
Which ones wouldn't I put it in?
Yeah.
I don't play it in some of the decks like that. Just example, like I don't play it in my Rogues deck. I don't think it does anything. It just, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. They're
cards.
But you could do that with your Anno one. Like, do I need a dedicated...
but draw cards better than Anno one. That's the problem.
No, but I can just kill you instead. Like, it doesn't kill you. It doesn't. Like, that's the main thing. Like, I don't know.
It kills my sense of self-worth and fun.
Well, okay. If I'm against you, I know it kills you at least on the inside. So I might play.
You win the emotional battle immediately.
Yeah. But like, it itself doesn't exactly further some of my more aggressive or tempo-y blue plans.
True.
You should probably still play it. I don't know if there's a blue deck I would not play Rhystic Study in, honestly. It just seems like it's so strong.
I don't have it in any blue decks except for my CDH deck, but like if I wanted to make my deck better, I'd put it in every single one, I think. That's the problem.
I don't think I have
any
copies of
I don't
it.
want to dwell on Rhystic Study anymore.
But at Vegas,
What?
speaking of Vegas, I am bringing my Chaos deck. So if anyone wants to play
yes.
that,
I
No,
want to
I
play
can't.
against that for sure.
I have a thing. I have a thing. It's called respecting my time. I can't make it. Sorry.
just that's like if you see me, it's like the secret menu in and out. Just say you want the secret menu.
Oh, there's an interesting one here that I am actually shocked that it's so high. We have some planeswalkers like Narset, Power Veils. I totally understand why it's salty. People don't like getting wheeled and having their hand discarded. There's a couple cards that I think fall into like do not make me discard my own cards, like Censure Blitz. I think maybe Mindslaver probably falls upon the same thing where it's like, you can take my turn, but like, I don't like it that you're wasting my own cards. That's not cool. But then there's this one. Okay, there's two actually that's kind of cute. Well, one I kind of understand, but Teferi Time Raveler, I am shocked. Teferi Time Raveler, it's a 3 fairy, a 3 mana Teferi. Each opponent can cast spells only when they can cast sorcery, so you can't cast instants on like, non-sorcery speed. This one is high salt 1.81. This beats out like Ruination, Mana Vortex, like a bunch of MLD effects. Like this one is up there. What do you
like
think about?
cascading?
I
Because a lot of people like it.
this
and
is
Teferi
the
doesn't like it.
cascading demographic right now. They're just like, oh, we gotta downvote this card.
Every single Maelstrom Wanderer deck is like mass downvoting this card.
I mean, well, if you think about it, though, what does Teferi do? It basically says you can't defend yourself from all my counter spells. Like, that is the primary use is like, oh, I play Teferi? Sure, maybe you could try to do, like, Veil of Summer or something to get to resolve your thing or counter me back. But no, it's just like the control player gets to be super extra miserable. So I can see why it's salty. And I think part of it comes from 60 card formats too, because the one that really shocked me is just like 5 cards ahead of Teferi is Oko Thief of Crowns, which in Commander is like a completely unsalty card for me. It's like a beast. It's a good card. It's like a beast within though. Like it's just a removal spell. I'm not going to get salty about that. But in 60 card formats, oh my God, Oko was like so broken and salt inducing. So I wonder how much of this is like bleed over from standard players or modern players or whatever who like have a memory of these cards being so brutal in 60 card formats, and they're voting based a little bit on that. Because I don't know, is Oko actually salty? Do you actually get salty about Oko?
Oko's like really good at multiplayer.
Fairy Oko are not even on the salt meter. Like they shouldn't even be on the salt meter.
I don't think it's salty, but I think you should be running Oko way more than it currently is played, because it starts at 3 mana, 4 loyalty, so you can very easily get it out on turn 2 in a green deck, because you do like turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Oko, and it plus ones. It plus ones to say target commander does nothing, and then you have to kill that commander to just recast it. Yeah. Then you have to go through an extra hoop. It becomes a 3/3 elk with no abilities, so it's worse than dead. It has to sit there. It has to sit there as a stupid 3/3 elk, and then you have to kill it in case you want to get it back. And like in Commander, where your commander is usually everything. Like that's, I think, the same reason why Janet Magistrate is so high. Is like so many people build their entire deck around their commander existing, turning into a 3/3 elk, and then having to like kill it just so you can recast it is probably like it's really good. I think I like it. And then you could do Oko puns. Oh, that's the best part.
Just planeswalkers, I think in general, I feel like are such an odd thing to have on here. Like they're just not like that good, like unless you're a Super Friends deck, right? Like I play one Miser Planeswalker, like it's kind of underwhelming, and all that happens is everybody just hits it, and then it's like, cool, I spent my turn doing that. I just don't think Planeswalkers are that salt-inducing. I mean, I think Oko and like Teferi are good. Okay, Ugin's not even salt-inducing either. I don't know. I mean,
it's not even on this list. But,
Narset is
one of my personal most salt-inducing cards in Commander.
I
only with Windfall, I think.
No, not just with
the wheel
wheels.
effects.
I hate cards that say, "Hey, you're behind," and you have cards that are designed to get you back from behind and draw your cards or something, but Narset says no. And then you have these ridiculous misplays like I did with Aminatu, where you like, play a Brainstorm or something and realize that the game is over now.
I was joking. I said you could draw with Aminatu, and then you're like,
yeah, it was already too late at this
clicked
point.
it, and I was like, oh
already
no, dude. But yeah, like I those cards I don't understand like why they're on here. Narset I can get it, like assuming I'm not even like adding the wheels to this, like just Narset on its own. I could see why some people would be upset because it's just a passive that a lot of things just naturally do. Right nowadays, everything draws a card, so I could understand that, and I see why this would just be Seth's like natural like worst enemy,
God.
right?
It really is.
But outside of that, like I don't see why any of these planeswalkers should be on here. Like no planeswalker should really be on here.
I kind of think all of them have a place. They are kind of easy to deal with if you have creatures. Obviously, Planeswalker as a card type isn't really that solid in Commander, but the effects on them are pretty good. Like Oko is way, way, way better than a Beast Within, and yeah, Teferi is just awful. Like if you can't deal with it and you want to resolve a combo or something, like good luck.
Really?
It's not gonna happen.
Teferi's static's pretty
I
good.
underrated Teferi.
Teferi's static's pretty good too. Like it's not Narset wheel your hand away annoying, but it's still like once you play against it, you'll be amazed at like how much stuff that you think your deck can do that it just can't do when a Teferi's on the battlefield.
Just keeping people playing fair Magic. That's fine. I
Except for
genuinely.
you, right?
I mean, sure, yeah. Like I don't understand like this is another thing that just like absolutely blows my mind, and why it keeps climbing up the salt scale is Droneth Magistrate. I'm sorry.
Oh.
What?
Didn't you see how salty we got in the game when you played it against us and it locked us all out of doing anything? Like, I feel like we actually got actively salty in that Commander Clash episode.
Was that
game
me
was that?
or was that Richard?
Was it Richard? Who played it? Someone played it, and it like just completely locked me out of doing anything. Like my deck was built around my commander. I couldn't play my commander. No one could kill it because I thought it was you because I thought they loaded it up with protection, so it was like never gonna die. And it was just my deck never can do anything.
That does sound like something I would do because it is. I played in my humans deck, but otherwise I don't think it's like that good. Unless
I mean,
it's CDH. CDH, yes, obviously it's amazing.
It's another like. Your deck can't do what it wants to do. Like, that's the common theme of all these cards. And commander decks, a lot of them are built around their commander, and Droneth Magistrate just says, oh, for 2 mana, you can't play your commander. And I know you can kill it and get it off the battlefield. I get all that stuff. But, I mean, cards that keep people from executing their game plan are what make them salty. Like, that is the biggest the biggest takeaway for me of this list. So I can see why people get salty about Droneth Magistrate.
Yeah,
My
there's also
biggest
an extra
takeaway is that some people should just be extremely prepared, right? Like for like I genuinely believe that there is like no reason why this card should be as absurdly like high as it is. It is so high on this list.
I think an extra point with Droneth Magistrate is that if you're on a table and 2 people care about it, or even worse, only you care about this, like, oh, I can't cast my commander, but the other ones already cast their commander, and they think, why would I deal with it? Like, and you're just sitting there and just, please, I don't have an answer to this, do something, and the other one's like, I don't care about this. And this probably adds to this, because especially, like, the thing, even though it stops you from playing your commander, but the thing Magistrate does is pretty narrow. Once your commander's out, you can't cast cards from, like, you can't future side cards or something, right? It's just not from your hand.
Well, it makes like Prosper decks sad.
Yeah, Prosper decks get hated out, but it's not like Narset where you say,
this
you
is
can't
all
draw.
the Prosper players downvoting this card.
I mean, Krim always has a sneaky Foretell card in his deck. It seems like every week he tries to slide one into the Foretell zone without anyone noticing. So
I don't even say anything.
Well done.
I gotta ask you about one other card. I know we're getting near the end of the cast, but Divine Intervention, 8 mana. If it sits on the battlefield for 2 turns, you remove the counters, the game ends in a draw. There's a lot of win the game cards. None of those, outside of Thassa's Oracle, which we already talked about, show up on this list. So it's not like people get salty because you have an alt-win condition necessarily. Is drawing the game just inherently salty? Like, is that the issue with this card? Because it's horrible and it doesn't even see play. It's in 0% of decks. Why is this ranked relatively highly, 1.66 on the salt score?
So I remember, I don't think it's salty. I think it's hilarious. But I remember I got a draw, not a win. I got a draw. I used this ability successfully. I succeeded in drawing the game out with Divine Intervention in a Commander Clash, one of the very first ever, when Jake in Season 1, and Jake was so mad. He was like frothing with rage at the idea of the game because it's not technically a win, it's a draw, it's trolling, blah 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 blah. And like so I can understand there is some negative feedback on like you're not winning, you're drawing the game, it's a waste of time, blah, blah, but I think it's hilarious.
Okay. I don't know why this is salty. Everybody, this is casual Magic. See, nobody lost. Nobody
had a good time.
I don't understand why this is on the salt scale, bro. That's not cool. Nobody lost. You're upset about me winning the game? Well, how about I don't win the game? I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand. This should be on every Command Fest, Command Zone poster. This should be on every deck box. This should be reprinted like a Soul Ring.
Everyone's a winner.
Yeah, nobody's a winner. All right, okay. Hold. There's a reason why we play this. Nobody is a winner. And what? You played Magic. It hits all the check boxes for casual Magic.
Yeah.
I want to play Magic. I don't want you to win. Like, I don't understand.
It is very anticlimactic, though. You gotta admit
I don't know about that.
Oh, the counters went, and now the game is over. And while I would just say, "Hey, I won, fight me," you didn't win.
Not.
Sure.
Okay, if they did a reprint of this card. Not a real reprint, but a reprint of this card where instead of saying the game ends in a draw, it says you win the game. Do you think people would be salty about it?
Boring.
No.
Boring.
And people wouldn't even play it, I don't think. Not that they play the draw version anyway, but no,
it
I don't
goes
think
against
so.
the spirit of casual Commander. I'm sorry.
I love that he did a jig.
Yeah, that was the best part.
Oh my god. I need like
because
a gif of that.
I got
just saying.
one question about the list before we end this. So there's an Agent of Treachery on here. Sure.
It's because of you. Well,
does that mean because a card that's not on here? Blatant Thievery is okay? I read out of this. It's not on here, so
no.
Agent of
fine.
Treachery is
way worse.
oddly easier to cheat, to blink.
Yeah.
Right, like I can't blink a Blatant Thievery, and yeah, it's a lot easier to like cheat this into play.
Sure. I mean, both of them are just super fun and fine for me.
Oh, I love them both. Like, please,
It's so good.
and it's a rogue.
Oh, sure. That's why I play it.
And my favorite thing personally is that I need to get an altar of it. I want it to be the Resident Evil 4 arms dealer dude. What do you buy it? Like, he looks just like it, so it's perfect.
I mean, it's a minor salt for me because it's like, oh, you're killing me in my own stuff, like boo. But like, I don't know. I just learned to respect it a lot more. Like, Homeward Path is in all my Commander decks now that Phil joined.
I found it funny when I
them.
stole a Homeward Path with an Agent of Treachery. I was like,
I mean, you got
glad
to,
you
right?
took the Homeward Path instead of like the thing that I didn't want you to take, right?
But
so it's like, okay.
But in my Blink deck or my Amanatu deck,
Yeah.
I don't mind. Like, okay, cool. I've gotten the first thing out of the way.
Yeah, it's a buffer. At the worst, it's a buffer. At the
It's a
best,
shield counter.
It's like,
It's a shield counter.
or you play it after something got stolen. That's like the best. It's like somebody like briberies you or like Rise of the Dark Realms and you like Homeward Path. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
remember who cast Rise of the Dark Realms? Well, we have all our creatures back, so have at it.
Man, I
White
always
Paper is
forget
fine.
about Homeward Path. I hope I think about it in the right moment because these effects are getting more prevalent and they are pretty good. But it's kind of why that blatant thievery should be. Like, technically, this is a lot of salt, right? Looking at the table and saying, oh, I take this and this and this, the best of everyone.
Yeah.
That should be super salty, but it's not on here. So I guess it's the context of blinking Agent of Treachery, which is pretty powerful. Kind of love it. But it was just blatant thievery. I would say, yeah, this is super salty, and I just play it anyways. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, love the card.
I guess people are more okay with these effects. It's like the expropriate is exception here because it's in the top. It's number 6 on the list. Or sorry, number 5 on the list.
That's
because
got to
it's
be
extra
because of the
turns
turns.
and-
Yeah.
I mean, you could just allow them to blatant thievery 3 times. It's fine. Actually, no, it has to be 1 extra turn and up to 3.
I mean, you can choose the.
So
the
you
blatant
always-
thievery as
Yeah,
well.
so you always choose an extra turn, the person who casts it, because if you vote for money, you just take you take control of a
Take
permanent
one of your
you
own
own,
permanents.
Oh, you
as
own,
part
which
of
yeah,
that,
doesn't
really,
do
yeah.
anything. So you always take an
Great
extra
wording
turn,
there.
and then your opponents let you either take extra turns or take one of their things.
I think that's what makes it salty, though. I think blatant thievery is like minor, very minor assault for me. I think it's fine though. You can play it.
Nice.
Year now, what? Like, I think the last thing for me is like years now removed, right, from whenever Commander Legends came out. Opposition Agent is up here. Why?
I hate this.
Why?
No. Do you ever play Fetch Lands? It's so
Do you ever play
awful.
Green, Crim?
Yeah,
No, not on the green part. Not on the green part.
It combines mana denial with like I don't know, stealing your
Paranoia
opponent's
as well.
cards. Like it's 10 triplets and Armageddon, not
Yeah.
Armageddon, but like a land destruction spell mixed together. I could see
It
why
does
that
feel
would be
like
salty.
a MLD kind of like if you have like
this is-
fetch lands in your deck and you just can't crack them because you have an opposition agent on the battlefield.
Or 3
you
mana
stole
open.
one?
Just 3 mana is
Yeah.
enough.
And
They
it's got
don't need the engine.
flash.
I'm sorry.
I just think I think it's a little bit. It's too pushed, but like I don't know. Yeah, it's too pushed.
I think
You
this
compare
card-
that to what's a Aven Mind Sensor? You compare that to Aven Mind Sensor, and Aven Mind Sensor is
yeah.
like an absolute joke compared to this.
Sure. I
It should have
mean,
been 4 mana.
but like I think that this card is. I think there should be more of these. I don't even think that. I want more ways to shut down like tutoring.
Yeah,
So,
at least
I
if
actually
it's
agree with
non-land,
that.
yeah,
I agree with
non-land
that. I want
tutoring,
more
okay,
anti-shuffle.
but
But I want it to be backbreaking. I want to be like no, not a slight like tap on the wrist. I want it to be like full on like you will never tutor again. And anytime you do, you will wake up in a cold sweat when you think about even tutoring again.
You want a card that will dethrone Stasis as the top saltiest card next year.
Yeah, that's
I want something else. Like I want a 2-mana opposition agent. I want an opposition agent at every
God,
point of the
no.
curve.
with
I want a
hexproof.
10-mana opposition agent.
I want an opposite station that costs no mana if you have your commander out. How about that?
I agree. That's
fair
good.
magic.
I like where
That's
you're
fair
going.
magic.
I like where we're building on what we're building on your Telmore. I like it. Get that idea into the like R&D right now because I love it.
I just if anybody in Wizards is listening, no, please don't.
Yeah,
I was
don't listen to
joking.
Krim.
Do
meme.
not let tutoring run rampant, and that is an emphasis on ramp. Like if you can't play land destruction, if land destruction's a big no, please let me just shut them down. At least let me just continue to dunk on cultivates and etc.
but Fetch Lands, it's
Punished for not being on a budget. If you're on a budget, you wouldn't have a fetch
it's so
land.
much fun though. No. It's like I am so happy that I just play when Krim wasn't on Clash and you could just play all the Fetch Lands. Oh, beautiful.
When Krim wasn't on Cash, I managed to do the Cauldron win. So
It's not even that he has it. I don't think
You know
he
how
had
many
it.
people
Just
like
3 open mana.
people would come into my stream chat and be like, "Krim, I don't know what's happening this season. The crew is just like resolving things willy nilly. They're not even playing around."
They're playing
they're not even
Magic
playing
this
around
season.
fears. And there's joy in their eyes. and
People
hope.
did things. They seem to be enjoying Commander. We need you back.
My challenge is
They're having too much fun.
you need to get back on now because
We did no fun police.
Tomer's just assembling Cauldra. That day when you assembled Cauldra, the video went live.
It was a
Someone
dark
came in.
day.
This would have never happened if
Wow. All right. So we talked about the saltiest cards in EDH Rec. Again, if you want to check out the entire list yourself, we're going to have that linked in the article, and also Joey's really good YouTube insights, the video on that where he talks about like which cards got salted, like what were the differences between this year and last year. He did a good analysis on that, and we kind of expanded on that with Discourse. And also just let us know what you feel are your saltiest cards, and the reasoning behind that. Like, what do you think about our takes on the salt score? What do you think about Rule 0? Would you want to discuss any of these cards before playing a game and sitting down with, like, especially with pickup games with strangers? How do you approach that? Let us know in the comment section below. As always, thanks so much for listening. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And until next time, friends, see ya!